that work. Coming in, you might have seen my good buddy on the floor again. Pretty nice, John. So John Issa, he's the Vice President of Business Development of Korite International, a company headed in Calgary. The company has an omni-channel presence of fine jewelry, fossils, and art sold in over 28 countries, and perhaps the most significant commercial ammonite mine in the world since 1978. John joined his company in 1979, and is one of the top experts in ammonite and ammonites from the Bear Park Formation of Canada. He's played an important role in commercialization and product development of ammonite and the introduction of this Alberta treasure to the world. John is currently a board member for the Association of Applied Gemstone Sciences. He's the past president of this not-for-profit organization. So John, and he's got the information that you get in your book. There's a website and stuff, the contact information on that. So John, you are looking good in this photo there. Is that the same one?
No, different one. Yeah.
A little different now. That's a little bigger. So welcome, and we're looking forward to your presentation.
Hello, everyone. So my name is John Issa. I'm the Vice President of Korite International. It's all working right. Good. So as you heard, Korite was founded in 1979 by a group of Albertans mining for ammonite gemstones and colorful Canadian ammonites. So back in 1979, they were pretty much just collecting pieces. Rene van der Velde and Pierre Paré would talk about collecting pieces on Saturdays and Sundays and Mondays, taking them back to the shop, preparing all the gemstones on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and then going to Banff and selling them on Thursdays and Fridays. So that's how the company started. In 1981, it was named an official gemstone by the CIBJO, the Colored Stone Federation in France. And in 1983, they started mining with heavy machinery. So, it's one of the largest ammonite mines in southern Alberta. So, Korite is a global company. We sell quite a bit overseas. Asia is a huge market for us. We sell in the cruise ship market quite a bit, as well as here in Canada and throughout the United States. So the pandemic kind of hit us kind of hard. The company went bankrupt, was sold again. A group of us came in and bought the company, and we're building it back up. So we like to call ourselves a 40-year-old startup company. So last year we came out with 17 new lines of jewelry, as you can see here. But the main thing to take away from this is that no two gemstones are alike, and it's one of the rarest gems in the world. So it's only found in commercial quantities in southern Alberta in about 110 square kilometer area. So if you think of all the other gemstones, diamonds are found in Canada and South Africa and places all over the world. To this point now, we only have commercial quantities of ammonite in southern Alberta. So it is our gemstone. And last year, it was named the official gemstone of Alberta. So we were pretty happy to have a part in that. And it's something we can call our own, which is really great. So Korite always goes back to our roots. We always recognize the ammonites. We use that in a lot of our designs. A lot of the textures we use for our jewelry are inspired by the ammonites and by paleontology in general. So let's talk a little bit about the ammonites. So ammonites are found all over the world on every single continent, including Antarctica. They come in all kinds of shapes and sizes, and they're amazing creatures. They're used in geology to locate different stratas. Their ammonites are used to prove things like continental drift, things like that. So, and they died out with the dinosaurs about 65 million years ago when the meteorite hit. But only in southern Alberta do you find the ammonites with the amazing colors like you see here. So it's something we can call our own. So what is ammonite? So ammonite is a biogenic gemstone and one of the last precious gems to be named. And it's one of only 3 that come from an organic source. The other ones, of course, being pearl and true sap, amber. Thank you so much. Perfect. So ammonite displays all the colors of the spectrum. Ammonite is often compared to opal. So they're both based on light interference. So they're breaking up the white light into all the colors you see, but the processes are a little bit different. So if you look at the opal here, the light enters the silica and it kind of bounces around all through it and gets diffracted, and that's where you get all the fire from opal. Ammonite's a little bit different. You have layers of aragonite and conchiolin that have been compressed down, and it's light reflecting and refracting through those layers. So what you see is broken up just like in a prism. And that's why the colors you see in ammonite are a little bit more uniform. But you can see every color of the spectrum. So why does ammonite in southern Alberta happen and not happen in other places in the world? So you've got your calcium carbonate. It comes in so many different forms, calcite, aragonite, there's other different forms. And calcite is the most stable form of calcium carbonate. And 99% of the calcium carbonate you find comes in the form of calcite. But something happened in southern Alberta to keep the aragonite as aragonite. And Keith Mitchelluk and his group proposed that at one point of time, there was more than 10 kilometers of sediment on top of this stuff. So that immense pressure kept the ammonite or the aragonite as aragonite. And that's why we find the colors that we see here in southern Alberta. So where does ammonite come from? I think I've said it a couple times. It comes from southern Alberta, and it comes from 71 million year old ammonite. But how do you find it? Well, there's 2 ways to find ammonite and ammonite. You can go tromping on the banks of the St. Mary's River on the cliffs, go in and find them, or you can open up a mine like we've done. We've done test holes, we've figured out all the geology and all the layers, and we've identified all the fossil bearing layers, and we've opened up an open pit mine. So here you're seeing the St. Mary's River Basin. So this is the St. Mary's River as it meanders through southern Alberta just south of Lethbridge. There's 3 active mines in this area right now. So on the north side of the St. Mary's River in this area here, this is all the First Nations blood reserve. So up on the north side here, you have the Buffalo Rock Mining Group. So they are a First Nations ran group, and they're mining there. Here you see the Korite mine. It's a pretty big pit. And then here at the bottom here is the Enchanted Designs mine. So as a crow flies, this is probably less than a kilometer between all these 3 mines. So it's just one small area in southern Alberta. So let's look at the Bear Paw Formation. So it's about 185 meters thick. There's all kinds of different layers to it. And the ammonites that we find in all the different layers are preserved a little bit different. So here we are looking at the St. Mary's River Basin. You can see this is looking north. So as we go to the right here, to the east, you're actually going down the Bear Paw Formation. And as we go here to the west, you're actually going up the Bear Paw Formation. So everything to the right is where we're mining now on the east side. So we're actually at the very bottom of the Bear Paw Formation, which is called Zone 4. Our earlier mines were up here in the K zone, and they're to the far west. And looking at ammonite, there's basically two kinds of ammonite. There's the ammonite you find in the K zone and Zone 4. And as you can see, they're 2 very different kinds of ammonite. So this ammonite here is from the upper layers, and it's what they call fractured ammonite. people compare it to dragon skin or a stained glass window. And this would be what we used to mine back in the 90s and early 2000s. Now we're mining in zone 4, and this is what they call sheet metal. So this area here, you're finding not as many of the fracture lines, although there are quite a few fracture lines still in the stones, but you can see it's more of a sheet presence. So here we are looking at the same St. Mary's River. So these are the first mines that Korite had, and this would be in the upper K zone levels. So we would be finding that fractured level. So where we're mining now, right over here, we're digging at the bottom, we're at zone 4. And right below zone 4 is a coal seam, and then that's right the end or the bottom of the Bear Paw Formation. The Buffalo Rock mine would be in this area right here. And the Enchanted Designs mine would be over in that area there. So you can see all this would be zone 4, or the very bottom of the Bear Paw Formation. So the ammonite mining process. So what we do is we use heavy machinery. I say we have to move a football field to get a shoebox of ammonite. So the only way to do that is with heavy machinery. So we have teams of 3 on a backhoe. You have the backhoe basically scraping and going down maybe 5 centimeters at a time. And you have 2 spotters, one looking to see what's left behind where the backhoe scrapes. And then you have one looking to see what's found in the bucket. Once we find something, the machinery turns off and it's all on hands and knees excavating the fossils. So the laws governing resources in Alberta are quite strict, as well as the laws governing mining. So in Alberta, when we fill a hole, we have to fill it up the exact same way that we dug it out. So we have to keep all the stratas there. We're digging on the Bear Paw. You can see the Bear Paw here. You can see it's this darker shale here. And that's the area that we want to expose, and that's where the ammonites are. So where we're mining, it's about 4 to 4.5 meters thick. And the ammonites are randomly deposited in those layers. So we never know what we're going to find or where we're going to find. And on average, we're probably finding about 50 ammonites a year. So that's a little more than 4 a month. Some months you find 6 or 7, some months you only find 1. So it kind of averages out there. But you can see all the different piles of dirt. Those are all the different layers. So when we fill the hole back up, we have to put the Bear Paw shale, we have to put the B, then the A, then the subsoil, then we put topsoil. It all has to be contoured so the water flows down it. And then we have to plant natural grasses. So once we're done and we fill a hole, you'll never know we were there, which is something we're really proud of. And one of the most often questions I get is, do you guys mine in the winter? Yes, we do. But when it goes below -30, it's a little too hard on the guys, and it's kind of hard on the machinery. So we never mind those days. Those days are in the shop, slabbing rock, cutting, doing things like that. And then in the summer, we go up to usually about 2 backhoes, and we'll get a little bit more mining done in the summer where the weather's nice. So ammonites. We're finding 3 main species of ammonites and 1 species of bacchite. So the most common species we're finding is the Placentissus wheatbag. So this has a smooth, ventor, and the fragment cone is smooth on the face. And I would say about 75% of the ammonites we find are this species in the Bear Paw Formation. This is the rare species and the most desirable one, of course, by collectors. This is the Placentissus intercalare. You actually have 3 rows of tubercles. You have 1 inner here near the umbilicus. You have a second one here on the fragment cone, and then you have 1 here on the venter of the ammonite. So there's actually 3 rows. And the 3rd species of ammonite we find are the Placentissus costata. Now, these ones are not typically in the upper layers of the Bear Paw Formation. We really started finding this ammonite once we went down to zone 4, to the bottom. And these guys can get quite large, and they have one row of tubercles. I've been told there's a second row, but I've never seen them on any of the specimens. So, and then we also find some baculites. This is Baculites cuneatus, which is the most common baculite we find. We have found some Baculitis compressus as well, but we don't find them that often. And in my history at Korite, I've only seen 2 scaphites, but I've heard of a few others that have been found here in Alberta. I know places like South Dakota, Fox Hills Formation, they're mainly scaphites down there, but we don't find many here in Alberta. So we prepare ammonites 2 ways. We prepare them 2-sided, as you saw the photos of all the other ammonites, or we prepare them in the matrix. So these are 1-sided ammonites, and they're actually taken out of the rock to be polished and prepared, and then we inlay them back into a piece of the matrix. I've only seen probably about 2 ammonites in my whole time that have been prepared naturally in the rock matrix as they've been found. But it's a lot of work doing it that way. So here's the ammonites, what they look like when we find them. So the colors aren't too good, but you can see all the colors here. And there's Darren. This is one of the ammonites that we actually kept in the matrix that I was talking about here when we found that one. I had a group of Germans come that day, and we came to the mine, and we were there for about 15 or 20 seconds when we found that ammonite. So it was really, really lucky for them. And they got to come down, they got to stabilize it, do everything as we found it. They were really lucky. And I remember I had a group of Japanese come, and it was a miserable day. It was raining sideways, and we were in the car waiting, and they couldn't find any ammonite. I said, okay, let's go for lunch. So we went for lunch, and then we came back to the pit after, and we were there all day, and we couldn't find a shred. And the Japanese guy came to me after, put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, John-san, I'll never ask for another discount again. It was pretty. So here's that same ammonite. You can't see it because of my picture in there, but here it is prepared. But if you look here, you can see the orange here by the umbilicus and the same orange here. And here on the end of the ammonite, right by the living chamber, you can see the green, and you can see the same green there. So the colors we see when we find them are usually what you see when the ammonite is prepared. This is a bit of what's working. Here's a quick time lapse of preparing an ammonite. I'll talk a little bit more about the mining once we get out there. It's playing here.
Move your mouth.
The screen died, yeah.
Yeah, so just move your mouth.
Oh,
I'm getting it. So that,
Yeah, it's the projector that died.
Projector died. Oh.
maybe it's time. Out. Yeah, turn on the projector again.
How do I do that?
Yeah. There should be a little panel in the corner.
I'll let someone who knows how to do it.
Yeah, oh, I see. So maybe it's timed out.
Good click. I suppose it's streaming.
It'll take a minute to warm up.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
here it just came on.
Will it come back on?
Just bring the screen towards us.
Yeah,
Like up the doctors.
yeah.
I don't know, John. You have other slides left after the video?
Yeah. It's beeping and there's a light on.
There we go. We weren't patient enough.
please clean filter.
That's what it says.
So there's Amber, he's chipping off all the rock on the ammonite, and here he is polishing it. And we just use regular wet dry sandpaper, polishing and stabilizing as we here we go. Now we're back. So here's the same ammonite here in the top left-hand corner. So as we're scraping and finding these fossils, we're digging in, it's not even really rock, it's more mud that has been hardened. So when we find an ammonite, the rock will cleave right where the ammonite is. So a lot of times it looks like it's just laying there perfectly on the surface. So the first thing we do is we have to stabilize it. So you pour some glue on there, basically till your eyes start to water, and then you know that it's enough glue down there, and you walk away, you leave it for about 30 minutes. Then you start digging around it, as you saw us hammering in the video, and you're digging all around it and basically get it up onto a pedestal, and then you get underneath it, you can crack the rock. So the top side would be stabilized already, the bottom side would be very fragile. So you got to get in there and do the flip. You do the flip and then you put glue on the other side, and then it's going to survive its journey from Lethbridge up to Calgary to our shop. And then we're going to prepare it as you saw in the video. But if you look here at this ammonite, you can see this green right here, and you can see the green area would be right here on the ammonite. And this was a particularly beautiful one because of all the blues and purples. It was amazing.
Is that the one in the,
That's the one from the video, yeah.
so that's the one you'll see in your abstract volume, right? That's
Okay,
the one,
yeah. So we've donated some fossils to many museums all over the world. Here's two we donated on the name of our founder, Renee Vandervelde. One is at the Terrell Museum. I'm sure many of you guys have seen it there. And the other one on the right here is one of the nicest ones we ever found. That's at the American Museum of Natural History in New York. I was just there a couple months ago, and I was speaking with Neil Landman, and they're building a new building basically around this ammonite. So they have a new wing that they're opening, and the ammonite's going to be the centerpiece right in the center, and they're going to have other invertebrate fossils all around it. So I can't wait to see it. They were still in construction when I was there last year. So 90% of what we find are broken pieces or fragments. So it's not every day you're finding an ammonite fossil. So the broken pieces or fragments, we will mark it as hand specimens, and we sell those. And the rest of the broken pieces will be cut up for gemstones. So here's a bucket of rough, but you can see all the beautiful colors that are there. And these are ones that are slated for cutting into gemstones. So as with all gemstones, there is a grading chart. So ammonite is graded by the number of colors and the brightness of those colors. So blues and purples are the rarest colors that we find, and they're usually on the outside of the fossil. That's why they're the rarest colors that we find. But a stone that's just blue is not necessarily worth more than a stone that's just red or green, because it's based on the number of colors and the brightness. So ammonite is a fairly soft gemstone. It's only about a 3.5 on the Mohs scale. If you think of diamonds, they're 10, sapphires, and 8. So it's similar to a pearl. And if you think of the origins, it makes sense that it would be that hard. So what we do is we put a quartz crystal on top. So that gives it a hardness of about 7.5. It's something you can wear, something you can bang around and live with. Korite guarantees all our gemstones. We have a lifetime guarantee on them. But because we're putting a quartz cap on it, we can do anything. We can put a high dome, we can put a low dome, you can put facets on it. Whatever the jewelry designer has called for in the style of the jewelry, we can do that with the gemstones. So you can see here, a lot of these stones are faceted, some are not, but you can see all the beautiful colors. So we also prepare naturals. These are stabilized naturals. And these ones are actually cut by Santo Carboni, who we call the godfather of ammonite. He was one of the original founders of Korite, and he was the person who really discovered how to stabilize and cut ammonite. He was part of the Canadian Geological Survey back in the 60s and moved out to Alberta. And once he discovered ammonite, he never went back. So one of the biggest questions I get asked is, what's the difference between ammonite and ammonite? Well, ammonites are the fossil. The L in ammonite comes from lith, the Greek word lith, which means stone. So ammonite literally means stone of the ammonite. So once it's cut into a gemstone, you have an ammonite gemstone. Once you have, when you have the fossils, it's just an ammonite fossil. And this is one of my favorites. That is a beautiful fossil. So here's the controversial slide. So in about 10% of the ammonites that we find marks on the outside of them, these holes on them. You might remember the picture of the Placidus guy from the beginning, had all those marks on it. So there's two schools of thought here. Some believe that they're limpet scars from the radula of the limpet, which attached itself like a barnacle on a boat to the side of the ammonite and scraped away and made a hole in it. Other people believe they're bite marks. Well, we find that there's nothing really sexy about a barnacle on a boat, so we promote the bite mark theory because it helps sell our stuff. So as Alberta has a lot of the strictest laws governing mining and resources, we also have strict laws governing fossils. So when we find a fossil, it still belongs to the province of Alberta. We have to dispose that ammonite. So we number and register each one of our ammonites. We send photos to the Trail Museum. They inspect each and every ammonite that we find. If they deem one scientifically important or not already represented in the provincial collection, they take those fossils. The rest are granted to Korite as a gift from the Crown. Even though we've spent the money mining, the money doing everything, the government still has first right of refusal. But we found over the years, it's a system that works. It works really good. We're keeping ammonites in the public trust. We get, in exchange for doing this, we get what's called a general export permit. So we're able to export these ammonites all over the world. And it's quite a simple process. So I know that there was a group in the Northwest Territories that came down to Alberta, and they were watching how we dispose ammonites and what we did with ammonite, and they were going to mimic that for mammoth tusks up there. I don't know if they've done it, but I can tell you it's a system that does work. So all our ammonites, of course, come with a certificate of authenticity, and that numbering that goes on the ammonite actually it adds value to the fossil. It gives it a little bit of provenance, it gives it history, and it's a way we can tell all the ammonites apart from each other. So I'll just quickly run through these. So we've done a lot of other things beyond ammonite. We dug dinosaurs in Montana. The rules in the United States are different than as they are in Canada. So we can dig dinosaurs there, bring them back to Canada, and we would sell them to natural history museums all over the world. Here's the Hypacrosaurus family that we sold to the Indianapolis Children's Museum. On the right is a Maiasaura pivosorum that is at a museum in China. There's a very young Johnny with a new genus of dinosaur we found. That's Crinoceratops pagoensis. We found two of them actually, the size of a Dalmatian. One is at the Children's Museum in Indianapolis. The other one is in the Mokpo City Museum in South Korea. On the right is a nodosaur that's in the National Museum in Qatar, in the Middle East. But we're here to talk about Alberta stuff. So in Alberta, we find a few things other than ammonites in our quarry. So here are some teeth from a find we had this last year in May of a mosasaur we found. We've also found dinosaurs. This is one at the Trail Museum of Prosaurolophus maximus. Yeah, and the neat thing about this, I love in the jacket, you've got all your dinosaur stuff, but right here, you've got a piece of an ammonite right there. So I just love the two associated together. And in this dinosaur, you have the same wonderful preservation that you have with those ammonites with the dinosaur too. So it's got skin impressions here. You can see all the different scales on there. I think it's just amazing. In May 2007, we found an elasmosaur, and it was actually named after our founder, Rene van der Velde. It was Alberta Natives van der Velde. There were 132 vertebrae in total, and 76 of them were neck vertebrae. The neck was about 7 meters long, and there was evidence of predation by a shark on some of the bones with scrapes, and there was some teeth associated with that. But I'm not going to go too much into the mosasaurs here because we have an expert speaking about that next. Here we are last summer. You can see Darren and Mark at the mine there. And this is the mosasaur they found. And this is the tail section here. And I was just talking with Darren about it this morning, and he was telling me that there's it's a pathological tail. There's 2 sets of fused vertebra in the tail of this guy, which is kind of neat. Here's a big prognathodon we found, and here's another mosasaur. This is actually the whole mosasaur. The body goes down here, and then it actually flips over and comes back here. So here you have the tip of the nose, and you have the tip of the tail right underneath it. I really like that. And here's another one from the Terrell Museum. So that really amazing preservation you have with the ammonites, you have this guy here. This is actually the trachea or the windpipe right there that was found. It's not usually found. Cartilage doesn't usually fossilize. And this guy's got another tooth in it. So that's what I come here to tell you guys. Thank you so much for your attention.
Well, thank you very much. For those of you that are into, this is not a dark. No, tell us where that one's going, because it's got a good story to it.
It's going to New York to the Sotheby's auction in June.
That's the one with the famous student T-Rex was going at.
Yeah, and you can see all the great colors, and the other side is all the blues.
I see a lot of mouths starting to water.
In my opinion, this is as good as it gets.
How much you gonna get?
Sorry?
How much you gonna get?
Well, we're hoping for 50,000 US.
That's out of grad. That's good. Anyway, on behalf of the APS, I'd like to present this t-shirt to John. There you go. Now you can wear that in the field. So as John alluded to, our next speaker is going to be talking about mosasaurs, and she's on her way.